Chauncey Smith was adopted at birth. His book is called So That's Who I Am, and it's sure to resonate with other adoptees. You'll hear his story today here on Babbie's House. Stay tuned. Babbie's House is coming to you right now.
Every day is filled with possibility. At Babbie's house, Babbie's house, everybody is family. Welcome to Babbie's house.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Babbie's House. I'm happy that you've joined me today. I'm so happy to have Chauncey Smith as my very special guest. He's written a book called So That's Who I Am. It's a book that tells of his story of being adopted at birth, but it's also a very relevant piece that will encourage other adoptees and also encourage people who've not been adopted, but to give us insight on their story. You'll meet Chauncey in just a moment. Right now, I want to sing a song that is a favorite of mine in recent days. It's a song that I wrote called You Love Me, just to remind you that God loves you just as much as he loves his son, Jesus.
Safe inside of your arms, no hurt can dare erase the touch of your embrace. This place where mercy flows, how beautiful to know. You love me, yes, you love me. You heal my brokenness, and in your love I rest. You love me, yes, you love me, my God, how you love. I can stand on hallowed ground, though I may make mistakes. My sins are all erased. I am overwhelmed by grace, and I can hear you say, oh Lord, you love me. Yes, you love me.
Welcome back to Babbie's House. I'm so honored to have as my guest Chauncey Smith, and he is the author of So That's Who I Am. Chauncey was adopted at birth, and in his book he shares relevancy to those who are other adoptees, as well as people who have not been adopted but want to know more about that experience. Will you help me to welcome to Babbie's House, Chauncey Smith. My friend, it's good to see you again.
It's nice to see you.
We go way back.
We do.
And have a lot of mutual friends.
And I love that song. What a way to set the mood perfectly for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm a fan, so
You're
thank
very
you
kind.
for inviting me to your home.
Well, thank you very, very much. Happy to have you here. So, Chauncey, you were adopted at birth.
I was.
What was that? What was the moment like when you finally realized that you were adopted?
Well, my parents always told me that I was adopted. My parents adopted myself, and then they adopted my sister, and then a few years later they adopted my brother Barry.
Oh.
And we knew all growing up that we were adopted.
So it was not a surprise?
It was not a surprise,
Okay.
no. And I was very, very happy. I used to forget I was adopted. I really did. Most of the times I just kind of forgot about it. I thought, you know, in the conversation we'll get to that. But I was very happy, and it was a wonderful childhood. And I never really thought much about being adopted until a friend of mine was going through a divorce, and she needed something to do. And she said to me, would you mind if I tried to find your, your biological? And I said, yeah, go, please. It's something I couldn't do. It was too hard to try to go through that process. I couldn't put
But is it something that you wanted to know?
Then I wanted, once someone else was going to do it and I wasn't alone, and it kind of sounded interesting. And all we really knew that I was baby boy Marison, baby boy Martin. That was written on the birth certificate, and that she lived in somewhere back east, and that she was 21, and that she was Presbyterian and played the accordion. That's all we basically had.
That's unique information, though.
Yeah, it's enough, yeah. But there were thousands and thousands of Marisons and Martins, you know, and my friend just started calling and telling people. She wrote a chapter in the book, my friend. Her name is Bina, about the do's and do nots, you know, of how to find it. Because people have the right to their privacy.
Yes.
But the child also has a right to find themselves, somebody that, you know, you're whole, to make you whole. Even just medical reasons, you have the right to find, you know, your birth parents. But there's a process, there's right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it. And in the chapter, in the book, Bina explains how she did it. One of the amazing stories is all growing up, I was an I Love Lucy fan. My parents would play Lucy, I watched Lucy, and I always would tell my friends that I'm going to meet Lucille Ball. And I'm like, well, how are you going to meet Lucille Ball? But I just knew I was going to meet Lucille Ball. And I got into the business, I work in the entertainment business, and sure enough, one night, I did meet Lucille Ball.
Wow.
I got my picture with her.
Oh my.
And it's in the book. And the interesting thing about how God works is, after a few months of my friend trying to find Marisons, she always would call these people and say, I'm putting together a family tree. She never used the word adoption. She'd say, we're doing a family tree. And then that's easier. People, you know, and you talk to this Marison and that Marison, you slowly start piecing it down, but we knew where we wanted to go.
Yes.
But, you know, so we started narrowing it. And my friend said, you know what, I'm just going to skip ahead. I'm not going to go city by city, state by state. She found a Lucy and Ethel Marison that were sisters. She goes, oh, how
Lucy and Ethel?
And Ethel that were sisters. And she said, oh, how funny. Since Chauncey's a Lucille Ball fan, I'll just start there. That was my Aunt Lucy and my Aunt Ethel.
You're kidding.
Narrow down the process right away.
Now, do you?
I have an Aunt Ethel and an Aunt Lucy. Well, they both have passed, but yeah, I met my Aunt Ethel.
How do you categorize that connection?
Me personally, I just know that God, in my mind, humor. I know he has a sense of humor.
Yeah, it just boils down to God has a sense of humor.
God has a sense of humor. And it was so strange how something so innocent like Lucy, I mean, her laughter, they couldn't say pregnant, they couldn't sleep in the same bed. It's so different than what's on TV now.
Sure.
And yet it's still so popular. And I always had a connection to her.
That's
and
beautiful.
I just think God said, okay, I'm going to make your life and being as a little easier. And we're going to narrow it down. What people have to remember is blended families and adoption. It doesn't just affect the person or the parents. It affects the brothers and the sisters and the aunts and the uncles and everybody. It's the community that's affected. It's not just one person. And I like to say that we're not better and we're not worse, but we are different.
Yes.
The very first thing that I inherited is abandonment.
Yes.
That's just what I am, because I was given away. My mom never saw me. She purposely never looked at me or touched me.
So she didn't know if you were a boy or a girl?
No, but somehow in her head, years later, when we did find each other, she always knew that. And after she had me, she had 4 daughters.
So you're the first. You're the oldest.
And then
now, did she raise those children?
Oh yeah,
she raised those.
Yeah, with her husband.
Okay.
Yeah, different husbands. Truthfully, what happened was she was dating this gentleman. They broke up. She met my father. He was abusive. He drank and he was abusive, and he physically abused her. So she left him and came out to California and stayed with Aunt Ethel. She didn't know anybody but Aunt Ethel, and she had me. And then the guy that she first dated came to pick her up, and they got married a week later.
Oh my!
And they were married all those years, and they had 4 daughters.
4 children.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then you were able to meet your birth mother eventually?
Yeah,
What was that moment like?
Both moms wrote a chapter.
Oh, they wrote chapters
Both chapters.
Your birth mom and your adoptee mom.
Yes, they both wrote chapters on their experience. And that's what I want your audience to know, is that this book is very helpful. A lot of research, a lot of facts are in there. So many families today are with blended families are adoption. And what people have to know is it's not their choice. You know, blended families is not the children's choice. It's usually the parents, God forbid, when somebody's passed away or remarried or something, and they kind of get thrown into another family. And I've said, you know, that there are many unwanted pregnancies, but there are no unwanted adoptions.
Yes. Yes.
And look, with the Heavenly Father, we're all adopted.
That's right. Did you ever struggle? Did you ever have a struggle with your identity?
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
But I didn't think I did. And here's the thing: when people would say I buried that emotion, or I thought, how could people bury something? I never understood it, but I did. It wasn't until I went through this process that I remember now, every single time growing up, when people would say how much I look like my mom or my dad. I didn't look like my mom and my dad.
Your adoptive parents.
Yeah. But as a kid, you just kind of oh, I know, and because they had my brother. And I remember how many times people would say how much Barry looks like Dad, or what a resemblance he has with Mom. And it did hurt. It did, because I didn't have that.
Yes.
Now,
because you knew you were adopted.
Of course. And I knew I couldn't look like him.
Yes.
And there were times when of course, with all the cousins and stuff, they all kind of got along. They all seemed to, and my sister and I always were kind of on the outside. What
kind of questions did you, in the dark of night, in your bed at night, when you had times to ponder, what kind of questions went through your mind?
One of the questions I would think, good question. I wondered if I accidentally ever ran into her, or if I would bump into her, if I'd know her, or if I had brothers and sisters. I often wondered what that would be like.
If you bumped into them on the bus or in the subway,
or what if
the airport.
What if they were famous or rich?
Yeah.
But you always wonder. There's always a piece that's missing. There's always but my parents used to always say we'd help you. They knew that they wanted me whole, and I thought I was whole until I started going through this process. Then it's a roller coaster ride.
Oh my!
It's just to finally, when I met my bio mom, I was on an airplane, and I was a wreck. The whole flight, and the girl next to me.
You're getting ready to go meet her.
To meet my mom for the first time. Yeah, and it's all in the book, but I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But there's a process of how we talked on the phone, and we wanted to exchange photos and stuff like that. And we had done all that, but now it's the time to actually meet her. And the lady next to me said, "What's wrong with you?" And so I told her the story, and she started crying, and then people ahead of us heard it, and they started crying. And so I asked this girl if she wouldn't mind videotaping this encounter. I wanted to have it on film. She said, of course she would. So she followed me out, and when I left, I stood up in the plane, and I remember very clearly, I said, "Okay, God, push. Nothing subtle here. I need a burning bush. Push me off this plane, Lord." And he did.
This was a struggle.
Oh yeah, it was really bizarre. I've never experienced anything like that. I knew my life was out there, but I didn't know him. I loved something that I didn't even know.
Yes.
And when I walked down the jetway, I looked at the end and I finally saw me. I finally saw somebody.
Did you innately recognize them? You just knew them?
Oh, just like that. And 2 of my 4 sisters were there, too. And for the first time, I saw me. And that's all.
Chauncey.
It's the most incredible thing, you know. And,
yes.
And now
you see yourself.
Yeah.
It's like
you have children.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but see, and I'm sure everybody can see them and you and them. And them and your grandparents.
Yes.
You know, that it's just noticeable in pictures and photos.
Wow.
We never had any of that.
Yes.
Those that are adopted, you never have that. So to finally see that.
So immediately after you met them, at that moment, at the end of the jetway, and you left the airport, what was the first thing you all did together?
Well, we got in the car and we were going to meet the other 2 sisters, you know, at the house. And I sat in the back seat with my mom. And at that point, I didn't feel comfortable calling her mom,
yes.
and I didn't feel comfortable calling her Loretta. So I called her bio mom. I asked if she'd be okay if I called her my bio mom, and she said yeah. So we sat next and we kind of held hands and we talked on the drive. And I noticed when we got there, I looked up and there was a huge sign that said, "Welcome to our family."
Oh, really?
They had made a sign and they all signed it. And there were my nieces and my nephews and the other 2 sisters. And we just had a party. It's a blur.
Yes.
It's a blur.
Yes, it just kind of, because your head is this,
yeah.
It's like so much information taken at one time.
Yeah, and I talk about, you know, like that night I got a hotel room because, of course, I was invited, but I needed alone time. I needed to get back in my hotel room and talk to the Lord and call my mom and talk about it. Because it was very, very overwhelming.
What a fascinating story. And I love the title.
Thank you.
So that's
who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and I think everybody, whether you're adopted or not, seeks to know who you really are, the reason why you were born, your purpose in life, whether you're adopted or not. That's always the big question that we ask. And so when we come back after this break, we're going to address that and talk about why I want to know the real reason why you named the book that. So that's who I am.
I will answer any question you ask me.
I love that. So listen, my friend, don't go away. After this break, we're going to talk more with Chauncey Smith and his powerful book called So That's Who I Am, a story of 2 families, 1 story, a beautiful story. Tell us how we can get the book.
Amazon. Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
You can also, Chauncey Smith on Facebook. You know, and just talk to me. I love hearing the stories. I love how this book is helping.
Corresponding with other adopted
I do. And
families?
people that are thinking about it, and blended families.
Yes.
Because I get it. That's something I know.
Very good. Stick around. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back to Babbie's House, my friend. If you have heard any of this conversation, then I'm sure you're just riveted to the screen because I am riveted to the story. And Chauncey Smith is my guest. The name of his book is called So That's Who I Am, 2 families, 1 story. Your story is fascinating, Chauncey. It's fascinating,
Thank you.
And but I'm sure that you have experienced rejection. I mean, all of us have in some way or another, but I'm sure it must be particularly real for someone who has been adopted.
It is, and this is what I hope part of your viewing audience will take in is, it was a wonderful story when I met my mom and my 4 sisters. Perfect. It couldn't have been any better. My moms met. My moms sent each other Mother's Day cards. My mom called the 4 sisters her North Carolina girls, and they called my mom their California mom. And I lost that mom. It's in the very last chapter I wrote, but it was just a beautiful, beautiful story. And I wanted so badly to find my father. And of course, my mother and father hadn't talked since me. They hadn't talked in 30-some years. But my friend Bina found him and got him.
Thank goodness for Bina.
I'll tell you what. And she got on the phone with him and, you know, did the whole thing. And he had heard that over the years that Loretta had a girl. And my friend says, well, she had 4 girls, but her first child was a baby boy, and that's your baby boy. And he was kind of cool with it. Really? Oh, well, what do you know? But then his wife in the background, we could hear her volume louder. Oh, no, what? And so they hung up. he called my friend back a few days. One of the things she always did in this research, she always gave her phone number and said, if you have any questions, you call me. And he called back and said, this is not going well in my family. And my wife, doesn't want anything to do with you or anything. My friend said, all he wants is a picture. All he wants is just a picture or something, because he has 3 kids. So, again, God does what God does.
Yes.
My sisters heard the story. All they knew was that this was their mom's boyfriend, but they knew his name. His name is Ray Campbell. That's all they knew.
Yes.
One of my sisters lived in Ohio. One morning, a cup of coffee, she's going through the newspaper. She sees a wedding announcement. The daughter of Ray Campbell is getting married. And she goes, I wonder if that's Chauncey's dad and sister.
Yes.
So she clips out the piece of paper, sends it to me. I look at it. I do a little more research, and that is my sister. So at least I have a photo of my sister. But also in there was the address to the wedding. So
Did you go?
A friend of mine, we got on the plane, went to the wedding, sat on the groom's side. I had a video camera and a camera. When the mother was walked down, it said the son, so I knew that was my brother.
Wow.
I knew the matron of honor was my sister.
Chauncey Smith.
I did. And I wanted it so badly, so after the ceremony, I walked up to my brother and I just said it was a beautiful wedding. I didn't want to ruin her day. I'm not going to say, hi, I'm your brother.
Yeah, I'm your brother.
But I shook his hand, got it all on tape. I got a photo with him. I walked over to the other sister and I said, I made up, where's the reception? And so I had her and a camera and had a view of her. But then it was time to go to the reception and I hadn't met the father, I hadn't met the bride, so we went to the reception. And that's when it started narrowing down, like people were starting to wonder, who are these two? Because we didn't know anybody. And I said, I better do this now. I walked up to my dad and I had my friend, I said, whatever you don't have your finger on pause, make sure you record
make sure
this.
you get
You
this.
make sure you get this. And he did. And I walked up to him and I said, it was a beautiful wedding, sir. And he shook my hand, not knowing he was shaking his son's hand.
Oh, my goodness.
But I touched him.
Yes.
I touched him.
Yes.
I have
You
that
met your
visual.
father.
I have that visual. And then pretty
Now, did he
soon-
ever know that it was you at the
Yes,
wedding?
about 2 years later, my friend called and said, Chauncey wants you to know. And he's like, we've often wondered who those 2 people were. He says, and I like to think he was proud of me. I'd like to think that, and he passed away a little bit after that.
Chauncey, there's so many dynamics to the story, but one of those dynamics is grace. And your ability to embrace your family in that moment without ruining the day, without ruining the moment, but getting what it was that you needed with love and grace and navigating that tightrope, I just think is a God moment. And we're just so happy that you came to Babbie's house today to share your story.
There's a lot of, I'm only 19, so look what it's done to me.
Oh, yeah? Well, you have fared well.
But it's an incredible journey, but it's so important for people out there. If you come from a blended family or you are adopted or you're looking, there is healing, and
Yes.
there is closure. It's a roller coaster ride, so hang on. But it's worth it to get to know who you truly are.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's most definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to Babbie's house today.
Oh, I hope I can. Can I come back
Oh,
sometime?
please. You don't even need an invitation. Just appear. Amen.
Careful.
Oh, I know.
Careful, I'll be
Careful
here.
what you say. No, Chauncey, really. Thank you for coming
Well,
this way.
thank you. And I hope people get it on Amazon. So That's Who I Am.
Yes, so That's Who I Am.
Amazon.com.
That's the name of the book. So That's Who I Am. And listen, dear friend, I hope and pray that you have been fascinated by this story and that you've been blessed. Will you do me a favor? Will you reach out to me today at Babbie.com? Email me and let me know that you've seen the show and that it's been a blessing to you, and we can relay those. Will you give me an email address? Give us an email address or website. Do you have a
Well,
web-
you can go to Chauncey Smith at Facebook.com.
That's very good.
Chauncey Smith, Facebook.com.
Chauncey Smith on Facebook. The Lord bless you, my friend, and keep up with us here on Babbie's house. Until then, may the Lord bless you real good. That's our prayer. Bye-bye for now.